I wanted to get your thoughts, I guess, on the amount of that tax cut, both property and income, if you think it's warranted and if you think that money could be used elsewhere, or should it be that large, I guess?
Well, before I talk about what I think is warranted or I'd like to tell you what my constituents think. We spent, probably about 2 weeks traveling around the district. I appeared on various radio shows, and I talked about this because the news sort of leaked out ahead of time.
Sure.
And what people told me to a person was, Dale, go to Madison and pay the bills first. Get rid of that structural deficit, and if there are any bills laying around for Medicaid or anything like that, pay those first. Then think about putting some money in a rainy day fund, and if there's some money left over, frankly, we'd like to see the money put into our roads or schools. Wasn't a lot of talk about taxes, and I offered it up. Do you want, that's generally the first thing I said, do you want a property tax or an income tax cut? And what I just laid out for you is what they pretty much said. The governor gave a great speech. He was very persuasive. He is a tax cutter. There's no question about that. And I suspect we're going to have a great debate. The Assembly has their own ideas, as you know. The Senate is a little more cautious, maybe a little bit more conservative. We recognize we're only 6 months into this biennium, so there's a little reluctance to push the money out the door.
This is what's projected to be there at the end of the biennium.
That's correct, but you know what? Virtually all of my constituents understand that.
Sure.
And they just don't want to have this unstable situation where we go from crisis to tax cut, crisis to tax cut. The one thing I would say that we should certainly think about is, as we are going through the next few weeks with this propane crisis, we may need some money to help out some people who can't afford to heat their homes. And I'm hopeful that the governor's task force will begin to look at that this coming week, and we will make provisions for that.
Well, I know that you are saying that people are telling you, make sure that the surplus is used to shore up the structural deficit and put money in the rainy day fund. The governor is saying no one he has talked to has told him, constituents around the state have told him to put money and keep it back in Madison, put it in our pockets, is what they're saying. You're saying you're hearing something completely different than he is then.
Without a doubt. And I'm not here to argue with the governor. I respect the governor. It's his job to propose legislation. It's the legislature, a separate branch of government's job to dispose of that. We have two houses with two different opinions. Hopefully we can come together on a position, and we can convince the governor that we heard him, and we can all walk away smiling. The one thing to remember, Greg, is this isn't like a budget or raising the debt ceiling. If we don't come to an agreement, all the money will stay in Madison, right, and it will be available in the future. There is a considerable number of senators who are very concerned about this being a projection, and who are very concerned about paying our bills and paying down our structural deficit. The budget before last, we were all very proud of the fact that we eliminated a $3.6 billion structural deficit. This last budget recreates it. And I think many of us would like to go back and get our constituents smiling again when they know that the state's finances are balanced.
I know that you recently came out with Senator Jauch and Senator Cullen basically calling on the legislature to rewrite the mining bill, come up with some provisions or revisions that make it more compatible with what the Army Corps of Engineers is looking at and the federal government. Do you think that's at all realistic, especially now that basically the Corps has said to the DNR, we can't work with you on a permitting process?
Well, the reason the Corps worked with us in the past is because Wisconsin's environmental laws, mining laws, mirrored federal law, and they felt that they could work with us and only put a company through one process. When the legislature chose to water down our mining laws, we told them that we had been told repeatedly in public forums through the mining committees that they were going to decouple. Well, what they did is they followed through with what they said. The net result is this rush to create a bunch of jobs has now been delayed even longer. We have a mining law that puts our environment at risk, and I think the three of us are looking at the letter from the Army Corps. the letter, or the 103-page report that the DNR put out the other day that was instantly attacked by the mining industry through its lobbyist. And we're saying, you know what, if you really want to mine, we have to do this right. And when a lobbyist that got every single thing they wanted in a mining bill now is berating the scientists they told us to trust, and comparing them to, you know, a bunch of hippies or something like that, you know, I think people ought to just take a deep breath and realize that maybe we were right, that working with our mining laws that we had would make a lot more sense, and we would create jobs faster. So my thought is that, you know, all three of us are there. We're willing to work with the governor and our colleagues. We're not against mining, and we just wanted to make certain that people understood we were there and ready to help.